I'm the one who grumbles about these so-called new, friendly, welcoming, accessible city environments and so on. Sometimes you sort of feel like the words are being misused. It says welcoming and accessible. Next thing you know, you're pounding your way around obstacles everywhere and furniture everywhere, and but things. Whether I don't know, it's probably because I'm getting older, but you hear about this new venue that has opened up. You go and check it out. They've had experts on the job that have training in universal design and follow all the right supposed rules, and it's all accessible to the disabled in the community. You go there and there's all kinds of glitches. They had, bus systems introduced in Victoria that I would say are not accessible. You mentioned about an inaccessible situation, and the person says, "Oh no, we make things accessible. We have the kneeling bus for you." No, well, the kneeling bus isn't really, for the blind. And new things are being built and constructed in the community. There's no reason that barriers should be introduced when they're doing that. Whether they're bringing new buses online or putting up new websites, whatever it is, the knowledge is there, and in my opinion, all the citizens of the community should benefit when some of this new infrastructure is being introduced. When they're putting in, let's say, curbs, new intersections are being developed. There's no excuse to put in a perfectly smoothless transition from the sidewalk to the, to the street, to the roadway. There's a happy medium where you can accommodate the needs of someone with a wheelchair, with a walker, with a stroller, and a blind person that navigates with the use of a white cane or a guide dog. Gosh, even a 3/4 inch tactile lip, at the edge of the sidewalk is enough to at least tell you, to delineate where the sidewalk ends and the roadway begins. So there's little things like that are being overlooked when new infrastructure is being put in, and that's, I think, unfortunate, because there's an awful lot of building going on these days. There's opportunity to actually really improve situation for the for all citizens in the community. And Victoria especially has a large population of seniors. And believe it or not, when things are put in for the blind, others in the community benefit as well. In this whole equation, are we being forgotten, or is it just not important enough in the planners' minds and in the powers that be that roll out this new infrastructure to actually make things happen the way they should? And I'm not sure of the answer, but I would like to actually maybe get a bit of a discussion going out of this session, because we as the blind need to figure out how to make sure that we're not forgotten. And the bike lanes in Victoria are just one of those examples. It's here's some infrastructure that was recently put in. It increased the safety of cyclists. However, it decreased the safety of other pedestrians and blind folks that are using public transit, and that's not an acceptable outcome. We should all benefit, or at least nobody should go backwards when it comes to using public transit and having their own town accessible and enjoyable and workable by all. So Heather, I'm going to pass it over to you.
One of the things I do as an assessor when I go into a building is not so much assess how wide the doors are. If it was built to code, it was just built to minimal standards. What I try to envision and work with is, how does a person operate within that building? What does a person do in that building, and what do they need to do in that building, and how accessible is it for them from the point of view of their usage of the building, not just to get in, but the usage. So one of the things our village council did was they renovated the village office so that just about anyone with a disability could be hired to work there without feeling like they had to rearrange everything to accommodate them. They decided that they were going to include people, all people, even people from different cultures, in a way that would allow them to work there and be included in the community rather than excluded and then, cut something open or make them feel like somehow they were different or alien. But one of the things we have in design are 7 principles, and I'll put them on the website or hand them out. But I just want you to know that it's not an easy discussion. What may be good for a wheelchair, what may be good for any of us, may not be good for the next person. But one thing's for sure, my friend in Australia, who's dead now, said 3 areas that it's not enough to just smile and take it. It's not enough to just have good feelings and good wishes, and there's all these quotes about if you think you can, you can. She said, no amount of good feeling and good vibes ever changed a set of stairs into a ramp. No amount of good intention and good vibes standing in the middle of a library made them all Braille. I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of questions. We all do. But if we were to ensure that we had the expertise in running the show rather than us coming and say, please, will you do this for us? That's the difference. We have to start getting our own people in places of power, and let that be a big part of our discussion here today, is how do we start to look at this from a framework that empowers us, not that we're going and begging for them to make the right moves. Thanks.
So I'll try to fill you in basically on what the developments are. What's happened is that there's some good news, and that is that BC Transit has recognised the value of what I'm hoping to provide for all passengers, not only the blind but everybody else. What we want to do is set up a pilot pole outside of the Disability Resource Centre and have it available so that everybody can get a chance to play with it. And if that pilot scheme works effectively, then BC Transit might want to consider rolling it out into the broader city environment, hopefully around the province as well. But it is a bit of a process to go through, and as I said, we're one of the early phases. We only got the thumbs up a couple of weeks ago, but it's been a protracted process to get that far. We're planning to do quite a few things. The major thing really is to get buttons for passengers to be able to elect what route, what bus they want to pull up at the stop, because one of the major issues has been drive-bys. Mm-hmm. And so what we see is the major issue is getting the right person on the right bus at the right time. And so the major issue initially is to find the bus stop itself, and so we're planning to put in some audible prompts that blind passengers will be able to use in order to be able to determine exactly where the bus stop is. The bus stop itself will have Braille, so that everybody will be able to recognise what the bus stop is and where it is, and of course the buttons as well will have braille associated as well. So that's the beginning. There's a lot more to do once you get aboard the bus, as you pointed out, with the enunciation services. So I think we would like to roll that out and expand that as the service gets taken up more and more. So, and the other issue too was to do with the bike lanes. Talking to the city has been a little difficult so far.
You think?
But we've got some plans to provide some enunciation services, perhaps to provide some kind of guideways that the blind can use to be able to determine where to go to, the best avoid the bikes. Not just bikes, also too, but with more electric vehicles coming out. They're a lot quiet as well too, and so we need to have a means to be able to identify where the bicycles are and where the motor vehicles are as well. And so there will be some personal devices, I guess, might be necessary, but ideally we're trying to avoid the need for the blind to go out and buy a personal device, because we could do some audible prompts, I think, that will help save that. So we'll just have to see what happens as time develops.